And welcome to another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. It's good to be with you. As always, it is the 27th day of September 2015. It's a very, very interesting night. Lots of stuff to talk about. Pretty creepy week, to be quite honest with you, with some of the headlines, some of the things that we're going to be covering. But I'm sure most of you, if you're listening to the show live, many of you are probably doing that remotely, watching the supermoon colliding with a lunar eclipse. Here at 9:50 p.m. Central Standard Time, in about 50 minutes, it's supposed to be at its half peak. So that's going to be pretty interesting. I was checking out the blood moon. I'm sure some of you were as well. It seemed like the chemtrails tonight were kind of clouding up the view from the Owen compound, but nonetheless, pretty interesting stuff. We'll talk about it more. By the way, my name is Doug Owen. This is Blacklisted Radio. I should mention that. And the website that you can go to be part of the show is blacklistedradio.com. We have an interactive chat room there. Lots of amenities and accoutrements free for you. Exclusive content. A lot of cool stuff that is... Yeah, see, producer Ken there working in the background has concurred. Yes, massive chemtrailing out there today. Yep. So anyway, you can go to blacklistedradio.com. Tell us about your supermoon experience, how your week went. There's casual and formal conversations that take place there. Always interesting. You can call into the show, 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. You can also tweet at me at BLN Radio. So, yeah, BBC News astronomers are gearing up to spot this rare phenomenon, a lunar eclipse that's going to coincide with the so-called supermoon. The supermoon occurs when the moon is at the closest part of orbit, and as it freezes on me, here we go. The eclipse is expected to make the moon appear red in color, will be visible in North America, South America, West Africa, and Western Europe. NASA claims a supermoon last coincided with the lunar eclipse in 1982, and it's not going to happen again until 2033. So tonight we have the United Nations meeting with the Pope, watching a pretty interesting video I saw on RT about the building and the construction of the UN building. Thank you, David Rockefeller. Some of you may know that there's a large revolver that is twisted into a knot, symbolizing gun control. Let's see. A lot of people are talking about the one world religion that he has been ushering in. At least the people that are not, freaking out about the end of the world and the fact that, yes, the first time ever, the U.S. government opened up the Arctic seed vault, which is kind of looming. I mean, there's been so many signs that we're seeing about, things that are colliding. And there's no doubt about it. The end of the equinox, all of these dates, the meeting at the UN. I mean, it's very symbolic. So, there's no mistakes here. Now, I don't think that it's the end of the world. If you're just getting out of your bunker, welcome back to Planet Paradise. The fact that they have chosen such days for these meetings is very symbolic. And most of my predictions from last week have been right on the money with the announcement of all of the unified religions. Not something that's shocking, but, of course, Pope, on his first visit to the United States ever, the largest FBI operation to protect the Pope ever, period, has been lackluster for the most part. I mean, it's a lot of people out there that are really hyped up. They're poped and ready to rock. I can't believe that this many people come out just to see this guy. And I wonder if I lived in one of the cities, like in Philadelphia or Washington, New York, any of these places that he's visiting, when I actually go out there to see the Pope. It's almost a demigod religion thing, to see this man. because I don't know. It's just it's like he has fandom. He's right up there, if not maybe probably way more popular than the Dalai Lama. But he's kind of a spectacle, something to look at. They wear their little fish hats and the Catholic yarmulke thing that he has going on there, and they talk about the one world religion. But I think that it's not a far stretch when you look at being Muslim, being Jewish, or being Christian, or any one of the many variants and colors of those followings. You really have Judaic Old Testament principles. And it's just a matter of who's the prophet. But they all pretty much believe, the old mean God that was, very torrential and like to put plagues upon the people and, all of that stuff that you get in the Old Testament. So when I hear him, kind of exuding this, well, we can all be part of this one unified religion. I mean, it all strikes at the core. It's already kind of unified in my mind anyway. Other than the outlier religions, the new religions, and of course, the not just science, but I mean like Scientology, things like that. You're not going to find too many that divert away from that. So, that's always been kind of one of my big problems, is that people are just arguing over the details. But at the end of the day, they all pretty much believe very similar things. And, today we have the supermoon, and we also have the new appointed council to the, the UN Human Rights Watch, the Saudi Arabians. They are going to, let's see here, they're going to crucify a young man because he dare talk about the government and being critical, which is pretty telling. I mean, you have crucifixions happening, and the idea that is archaic and evil and should not be done is, I don't know. It should be pretty self-evident that the Saudis are pretty evil people. Yeah, he was a teenager protesting the government. Here we go. I saw this today from U.S. Uncut, and the story has been all over the place. Saudi Arabia, which was just admitted to the UN Human Rights Council just days ago, will imminently behead and then crucify. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. It's such a farce. It shows you how corrupt and, right on its face, pointless having a human rights council is. So, sorry, it's just kind of macabre humor here. Ali Mohammed Al-Namir, a young man who encouraged pro-democracy demonstrations during the Arab Spring in 2012. He got his paycheck from George Soros, or he got his pre-printed pamphlet from George Soros, and he was fighting for America. He was fighting for democracy. Anyway, when he was 17 years old, that was when he participated. In protest, the hacktivist collective Anonymous apparently shut down a number of Saudi government websites yesterday. Activists subsequently took to Twitter using the hashtag #OpNamir to oppose Saudi Arabia's execution to Al-Namir. It would be nice to see the massive outcry for this gentleman to actually, touch the Saudis. Although, don't hold your breath. The amount of I just can't believe that these are the good guys. That's what's so ridiculous to me, is that if you think that they're the nice guys, and we see what's happening in Yemen, and we're giving them a pass on, day by day, committing gross, negligent war crimes. I don't know. It's kind of unreal. It's kind of unreal, and it's unsettling that people still think that system has some legitimacy. So, when the Pope meets with the UN good luck getting anything done because they talk about lots of wonderful things. Actually, I have this pretty good list of a breakdown of things that the government is pushing forward and that we hear coming out of the Pope's mouth. Let me see if I have this here. It's pretty ridiculous. Agenda 2030. If you haven't heard about this, since these supposedly non-binding international agreements can sometimes be a bit tricky to decode, that's what we're talking about, with all the weaponized buzz terms and semantic games, we've prepared a handy-dandy translator on 17 new Agenda 23 goals. One, you're going to like this. This is the perfect Pope speak. Goal 1, end poverty in all of its forms everywhere. Translation, central banks, IMF, World Bank, Fed to control all finances, digital one world currency in a cashless society. And this came from the Daily Sheeple, by the way. Yeah, how do you do that? Well, you can't have people hoarding cash because then they can take it somewhere else. Then you can, have some kind of autonomy, and you can actually collect money and maybe put up a fight against, the tyrannical aggression that is becoming pretty evident to most people. I mean, we talked about the statistics, the percentages of people that are, considering an armed revolution in the United States, people that are getting on board with that idea. Well, and actually, funny enough, I know a guy, a good friend of mine, Pat, who just retired, and that's what he would always tell me is, Doug, it's going to take a revolution, an armed revolution to change anything. And I'm sure he still believes that. Anyway, so that sounds nice. What else are they going to be pushing? Goal number 2, end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Translation, GMO. And I'm sure that's where that arrives. The solution. There's a problem. There's some reaction. And, of course, there's profit. The most important thing there being the profit and those that will become the new modern agricultural oligarchs. Number 3 here, third goal, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Translation, max vaccination, Codex Alimentarius. If you're not familiar with Codex Alimentarius, it's basically the government regulating everything that you could possibly put into your mouth. I mean, this is the part of the Nuremberg Treaty was, no forced medication because, well, back then we kind of understood that, you didn't want to give the government too much power to, give people drugs because they'd been doing really bad things with it in Germany and everywhere else. I mean, most of that came from the modern eugenics pushers here in this country, especially in California. Long story, but nonetheless, that's where we arrive. And there's some more goals here. I'll put this into the chat room if you want to look at the Sustainable Development UN charter that they are creating. But, how many of these goals are tangible, are real, could actually come to fruition? Not probably as many as you might think. Let's see. But it sounds good. They're going to ask for more money, because that's what the UN needs. Oh, we just need more money. We need people to help us. Let's see. Did you just come back up? Oh, okay. Never mind. There's a sub conversation going on here technically. Anyway, good. So everybody out there can hear. Perfect. So, yeah, the Saudi Arabians, not very good arbiters of humanity in general. They are going to probably be alongside all of the other people listening to the Pope and I don't know, maybe doing blood ritual sacrifices. That's one of the things that can kind of come out of things like this. It's pretty interesting. I I wouldn't call it woo-woo, because I do believe in astrology. I do think that, different signs and, when you're born, the magnetism of the moon, a ton of variants and factors do affect everything from your personality to your health, your a lot of underpinnings, a lot of things that we don't really understand, but we, kind of hold them self-evident. When you look at me, I'm a Capricorn, kind of. Almost every trait, it's pretty on the money. It really is. I'm bullheaded, I'm stubborn, all of those things that you would expect. So I don't dismiss it. It's not, I wouldn't call it junk science, but it's, it's actually probably one of the oldest sciences, and that is looking to the stars. So the super blood moon, total lunar eclipse in Aries, they're saying that this could affect your relationships. We'll be having a total lunar eclipse on tonight, actually, from the 27th to 28th, which will be visible from North America. I already mentioned that. The total eclipse is a supermoon, which is when it is at a closer point to Earth. It's also the fourth and final blood moon of a series of 4 consecutive total lunar eclipses over the last 1.5 years. The themes and circumstances in our lives at this time are connected to what is developing during the total eclipses, especially the previous one that was in early April. Lunar eclipse is a supercharged full moon. Its effects are most strongly felt in the week leading up to it and the weeks following, but are played out over the next 3 months. So, a lot of you probably are thinking, well, does that mean anything really, or is this just, I don't know. Plenty of skeptics out there. But, the ultimate question is, does that have a kind of effect? Do people in government, do people that are illuminated, for lack of a better term, but those out there that understand these esoteric, deeper, hidden sciences, do think about it. The old adage about Ronald Reagan having an astrologer tell him when to start his speech is what color tie to wear. You see people that are in power are very, very into astrology. So it's not so much whether you or me are, it's that people that, throughout history, not just in the political sphere, but also in Hollywood. Basically, the media, the perception management system that we have out there today. Big media, big corporate, governed, somewhat regulated, but pretty much at the disinterest of the informed people, or people trying to become informed from watching it. Very into doing things in alignment with the moon. Wars always started on very pivotal days, usually in March. There's some pretty bloody months there that you could find a lot of symbolic things. 9/11 is one of those that becomes almost a recurring pivotal day. Now, granted, there's only 365 days out of the year, and so there's going to be something pretty pivotal happening almost every day. And, we live in a world where that is the case. That's why we continue to do the show. We'll do it on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere. It's the Super Blood Moon edition of Blacklisted Radio. All right, welcome back. It's Blacklisted Radio. Yeah, I don't want to, dispel anybody when I talk about some of these things that I see firsthand all of the time. And that is where people could do the right thing, but they do the wrong thing. Look at Fukushima. Perfect example. The TEPCO company. They knew that the design was bad from the get-go. GE knew it was bad from the get-go. But it was about profit. It was about creating this, source of, self-generating revenue for 40 years. Well, anyway, they should have shut it down 10 years ago. Okay, that was the recommendation. They knew that it was in horrible, horrible condition, and that if something like a tsunami hit it, lights out. So the profitability of Fukushima in their minds and not doing the right thing was worth it to make money, not only for themselves, but for their stockholders and for the Temco company. So just so is nuclear energy so scary? I don't think so. I think that nuclear energy is probably one of the few things that could actually power the planet and be something that would be a real green source of energy. But can you trust people to run those nuclear reactors? Can you trust people to report that it's leaking? And then even if they do, would the government tell you? That's where we're at with what happened with Fukushima. The government didn't tell anybody, and they knew that people were being irradiated. So, and to keep people from panicking and leaving, everything's okay, everything's fine. That was what the government said over and over again, and a lot of people bought it. Anyway, we go to the phone lines. You can join the conversation, 800-313-9443. We have Blue in Tennessee. He's on Blacklisted Radio. Welcome, Blue.
Hi, love. How are you?
Good. I am doing well.
Brought up some very interesting points. You're absolutely correct as far as Fukushima is concerned. So the reason I called, and I wanted to call in to address some other things, but there's technology that has been so suppressed, and that would be Tesla's technology. We could create a Tesla coil, and Russia's doing it now, with the world's largest Tesla coil ever invented, based off of Nikola Tesla, and everyone can have free energy.
Sure. Yeah, we think, I don't know if it's tested, if we could all have the free energy and if it would work exactly as, the Russians purport. And there's plenty of people across the globe, if they could get one to work and they could sell it and undermine the U.S., I think that they would do it. I don't think that they are at the point where they could. But a lot of Tesla's work is still classified by the CIA. So it only begs more questions, doesn't it?
The man absolutely died destitute because he was AC current versus DC current.
Sure.
AC current you can't charge for. AC current or DC current you can. That's direct line currency.
Well, yeah, I think you could charge. They're charging you for the battery. You pay one way or another, but you're exactly right. When J.P. Morgan,
sadly enough, they say the Edison battery. Now the Edison battery, they've got Edison batteries that are still continuously working since the late 1800s.
Yeah, have you seen that? Isn't that? And they're afraid to take it apart because they don't know why it's still working. But with all of the technology we have today, there's still those mysteries that seem to point to more a higher intelligence that we are not being let in on.
The interesting thing with Nikola Tesla's father, he actually worked for the Vatican. Nikola Tesla, when he was a child, was allowed to go into the vault of the Vatican. And the Lord only knows what he wrote down.
Yeah.
Between he and the good Lord.
Yeah.
This is probably where he formed his direction for the AC current versus the DC current.
Right.
Edison was a son of a bitch. That is one evil man.
Oh yeah, he definitely was. He got his jollies electrocuting animals and using that to scare people.
Elephant. In particular, an elephant.
Oh yeah.
But it was proven that the AC current can pass through humans without a hitch. The one woman that Nikola Tesla loved, she stood up on stage, and they put the Tesla coil into action, and Tesla touched shiver at it, and the currency completely passed through their body without any injury. And he put his love of his life on stage with him, and she agreed to go with him. And it did not affect either one of them. That was not the reason I called you.
I mean, the deal with DC Current, though.
Yeah,
well, I did want to mention, I do want to respond to that, is that the problem with DC Current is that when you run it through a power line, it doesn't alternate, and it's constantly hot. And so it will, I mean, it's like a big battery, a big car battery. If you touch it, it'll blow your fingers right off. You know.
Sorry to interrupt. I hate to interject. Now, what we're running on right now is a DC current.
Well, most things are DC current once it's changed. But the distribution, that's what we were talking about. That was the whole deal, is the distribution. You can't run anything on AC. I mean, not anything that has much intelligence beyond a light bulb. It has to be converted to DC electricity. But we could geek out on this all day long, because, you know, that's kind of my thing. But I don't know if we lose the audience on a lot of it.
It can be converted. It's been proven on a variety of different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And all we have to do right now is look into exactly what's happening. I live in Tennessee. Okay? Mm-hmm. I happen to know one of the coolest places in Tennessee. And no, we are securing our borders. So no, we do not want you in our state. Sorry. Find another state to move to. But right now, the Oak Ridge Laboratory has created a vehicle and a house that can run off of each other's power. I mean, it's a tiny home, and it's a little car. It kind of looks like a Jeep. And it's all 3D printed. So the technology's out there. The question is, are we going to allow this technology to be suppressed?
I think that, you know, with most things, it's the market. You know, when you look at e-cigarettes, the government hasn't made them legal. Actually, through Operation Checkpoint, they're trying to go after almost every bank that deals with tobacco, alcohol, making it just horrible for these guys. But people figured out that they can vaporize, you know, nicotine and make a solution. And you see, I would venture to say tens of thousands of stores have popped up all over the place. Where I live, there's probably like 5 or 6 different places where you can get your liquid vapor. I mean, and convenience stores. And so without anybody's permission, people just started doing it. And they just said, hey, this is awesome. And the market took that immediately. What's going to happen is that somebody's going to finally develop something that's going to be affordable, and people are going to like it. It's going to meet the metric, if you will, or what people want, and it should take off. But, you know, it's going to be people like you, Blue, other listeners out there that take these technologies and you know, adapt them and make them useful for people, so that, you know, they become an overnight success with or without the government.
Well, the reason I called in is what you were talking about with the seed vault. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's great. You've got the seeds. But, baby, if you don't have the bees, you ain't got nothing. If you not protect the bees and save the bees, you're not going to have pollination unless you're going to stand there and hand pollinate every single flower. You're not going to get food, and you're certainly not going to get food on that end of the world.
Right.
Where I'm from, when I was a child, you had to wear shoes when you went outside because you might step on a bee. And that's what we were always told. When I was a little girl, every single night, the sky was bedazzled with lightning bugs. And in the morning, there were butterflies everywhere. Whether they were maidenhair butterflies or buttermilk butterflies, they were everywhere. They're not there anymore. We've destroyed what ability to have these wonderful, magical, mystical creatures.
I know,
my heart is part entomology.
Mm.
And unfortunately, my university, you cannot get a major in entomology. You can only get a minor in entomology.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't have these magical creatures, we don't have food, folks. Once the bees are eliminated, you have 5 years at max, unless you're going to hand pollinate every flower. And you do it the right way. Just because you think that you can sprinkle some pollination onto another plant or another flower, does not mean that you've done it the right way.
Yeah, that's what, I just think of these like crazy scenarios where you have drones pollinating with some kind of GMO, pollen, and what that may be like in the future if we don't have bees, if we don't have these natural processes that currently we have today. And the adaptation of that would be, really, really scary. Really scary.
Well, the problem is with the drones, it's like crop dusting. Okay? You can drop it on there all day long. But there are some significant things when you're looking at the pollination of plants, that those little teeny tiny legs of an insect kind of merge, and they kind of, there's the nicest way to put it, take...
Blue, you're breaking up there. You're breaking up. I can barely hear you, and it's just cutting out a little bit, but...
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I guess the best way that I can describe it is those little legs of an insect, they act as that they are the piston to infuse the pollen into the plant.
Sure.
Just because you can draw pollen does not mean it is going to work.
No, yeah.
We've had evil humans doing evil things, and it starts with Monsanto. And we're slowly watching Monsanto's fall. Okay, I get that, but rather than take the battle to DC, if you can crush Monsanto and the pharmaceutical reps, then you crush DC, simply because there is not anybody else that is strong enough to back these people. The best news that I heard all week is that Boner is going to be forced to step down.
No, they'll have another Boner to take his place. Don't worry about that, Blue.
I'm not quite sure about that one.
I don't know.
This one came from some pretty significant, and whether you like the Tea Party or you don't like the Tea Party, I've been on both sides of this fence. I've been a Democrat, I've been a Libertarian, I've been everything. I've studied on the other. Right now, it's called I really don't give a shit anymore.
Party.
Right.
All right. Well,
I want to see something change.
Yeah, I appreciate your call. Great points. Heartfelt. I think that, and I've actually pollinated flowers with, you use a paintbrush, dry paintbrush. You actually have to penetrate. Yeah, so I know what you're talking about. We do a little backyard gardening when we can. I need to get back into it since we moved to the new house. Actually, I spent most of the day arboring out there, trying to get some light through the canopy of trees. That way we could actually grow some things, which would be nice. And it's time to plant winter crops. So that is what today marks, among other things. I think that, you make great points, Blue, but, there is Syngenta in there right there behind Monsanto. The point is that it's wrong. And so I think that rather than telling people there's not going to be any food, I think it's safer to say it's going to be food you don't want. It's going to be hot pockets. It's going to be a lot of creepy scientific stuff and bugs. That's where they're trying to get most people to go towards, is just eating bugs and normalizing that, and some kind of Soylent Green drink, and that'll be what we eat. And of course, if you go to Monsanto, they have lots of good, healthy, organic foods in their cafeterias. So, they probably don't want to eat the food that they're selling either. Most people don't. They sell everybody else crap, and they keep the best for themselves. It's it's a problem. So I wanted to talk about the Karma Police. If you haven't heard about this story, illegal GCHQ, which is the NSA equivalent in the UK, was tracking every visible user on the internet, everybody, and they called their secret Operation Karma Police, which is pretty Orwellian, just the name. And if you saw the story, I mean, we kind of get inundated with lots of government spying on everything. And what's funny about it, it's not that they're spying on everything, it's that I used to always think that the government watched everything. And it was just kind of matter of fact. Like, how could they not? How could they not be watching everything that you're saying on the internet? And then people, got to this point where there was a lot of hubris, and they thought, the government's not listening to everything you're saying, man. And, twofold or, full circle here, I'm right back to the same point. They're watching everything you're doing, man. They always have been. But the fact that they call it the Karma Police was something that I thought was pretty wild. If you haven't heard about Volkswagen, the Nazi cars, Volkswagen is in hot water. Basically, they had a proprietary program, part of the corporate cover-up, and the program, whenever you would hook up an OBD2 scanner to it, it would change the emissions to make your car look like it was doing a lot better and good and legal and helping the environment. We'll talk about that and wrap up this show in the final segment straight ahead right here on Blacklisted Radio. And welcome back. It's the final segment of Blacklisted Radio. Yeah, so real quickly here, maybe corrected in the chat room, which is what it's good for, gut checking me. Might not be the OBD2 port that they plug into, but nonetheless, it's an emissions scandal. You plug the car in, whatever port, looking at the emissions, whenever it's in the inspection phase, it automatically changes the way the car drives, shifts the air mixture ratio. It makes it seem that it is burning less emissions, or I guess burning it, but emitting less emissions. So huge scandal. This is kind of, I think it shakes at the bedrock of the people that are fans of Volkswagen. I mean, and those are the kind of young, hip kids that, especially in the U.S., but more socially conscious type people, and that's a huge generalization there. But those are the kind of people I see in Volkswagens. Somebody that would, not yuppies, just the kind of people that, would go to the co-op and eat organic food. And, the turbo diesel, not quite as clean as you may have thought it was. But the point is that the failure, you would think it would be a huge epic failure. The CEO, he's getting a $32 million pension payout as he leaves for basically destroying the company. And, there you go. That's why the corruption continues. Because even though they probably get a lot of bad PR, and, probably no worse than, the Priuses that wouldn't stop? Somewhere in that, and people still buy them. Oh, they love them. They don't care. They don't care how many people died because of GM's, the GM ignition switch. Doesn't mean anything. Neither will this in the long run. But the amount of money they saved and being able to get into markets that maybe otherwise they would not have, getting all of those government seals and probably bailout money or subsidization in some form or fashion to make greener cars. I mean, there's a litany of stuff that you get paid by the government to create a product that's, eco-friendly. So, proprietary software, the government doesn't own it. They want to own your car. The corporations say that they do own every bit of that software. And as we move into a world where, cars are still, moving into the Internet of Things, and getting more and more technological by the day, technology driven, the tracking, the tracing, and a lot of these, just horrible laws, like forcing everybody to have a black box event recorder that tracks you and gives that information over to the police, using your car as evidence against you, the ability to track it, the ability to remotely turn these vehicles off. These are all things that are mandates coming up into 2020, 2016, 2014. There were bunches of new mandates, new safety requirements, and the interesting thing is, will there be that technology revolt? Will people finally break away from, the traditional systems of control? You have 5 or 6 car companies in the U.S. that are doing major business that you can buy. I mean, how many people are going to start buying older cars and, hacking their own cars? How long before we see more open source phones? I think that's the good thing, is that it's only a matter of time before this technology and people just becoming more technologically driven are going to want to create their own phones and create their own. And there's some of these platforms. I talked to Blue in Tennessee, and she said, when will this, get out there? It's when people, create something and then it becomes big. It becomes bigger and quicker and faster and more viral than government ever could. And that's a great idea. It's really hard to keep a great idea down. The government's done that. The U.S. government's always trying to keep a great idea down. Anyway, we've only got a few minutes here. I want to mention what's happening in Syria. If you haven't seen the most interesting development to date, that is the U.S. Well, there's a little shenanigans. I mean, there's a little bit of an embarrassment. The U.S. has been funding these so-called Syrian moderates that are taking weapons and guns and bullets to ISIS. It's not a shocker. But we have Russians on the ground, and the Chinese are coming as well. They'll be there. So, next week, Syria should be even more interesting than it is this week. All right, guys, enjoy that eclipse. Hope you have a great evening, great week, and I hope to have you back here again next Sunday night for another live edition of Blacklisted Radio. Until then, take care.